Welcome everyone, Crowon is here. So this is the first video in our tutorial series for setting up, integrating, and using our add-on series from Crowon Studio. So first we'll start with UCE Tools, and that's because Tools is used for pretty much all of our add-ons, and it also opens a lot of flexibility for you to expand upon in your game. So we'll start there first and move forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and expand our user uMMORPG folder and go to our add-ons, and we're just going to right click, import our tools package like so, and let that go through the import process. Now keep in mind that tools will take slightly longer than most of our add-ons to import, and that's just because there's so much in there. There's other plugins that help add efficiency and use case to your game, while a bunch of other code expansions that we've built throughout time, I guess would be a good way to put it. So we're just going to import that. Most of these are pretty quick, but Tools having so much in it to save having to put it in multiple different add-ons has made it a lot slower in comparison. So there we go, we have our tools now. You're going to have a couple errors, and don't worry about that, it ain't a big deal right now, we're about to fix them. So right now we're going to expand tools out, and we're going to go to the README. And the best way to look at the README is to go to Show in Explorer. This is going to open up your folder structure, and just double click on the README tools, and then close that, and that's going to open it up to look like this. And now the whole point here is to show you how to go through this process that I'm going to show you in the video. So I'm not going to have the READMEs on screen as we go through them, just because it takes a lot of flipping back and forth since I'm only recording one of the screens I have. So I highly suggest having this off to like the side monitor if you have that ability, because it'll make this a lot more fluid. So I'm going to quickly explain how these READMEs work. So moving forward, you already know what we're doing with each one of them as we go through them, so you don't have to keep going and looking at it. So a quick reference, the top left is our Discord link, then our website link are these two icons here, and then the name of the whatever add-on you're working with, what version that is currently out and this README is for, what it requires. So this requires uMMORPG3d, which is what we're using, and then it's telling me it's using a define of tools. It's telling me it has some core changes, and there's no tutorial video. Now the tutorial video I'm obviously working on right this moment, so this will be incorrect and changed later. You'll see yes in here when you're using this moving forward. Now we'll have a description. This is going to give you a little brief description of what the actual add-on does as an overall hierarchy to what it's possible with it. Core changes here, so if it has any core changes, this section will be here. And in this section you just have a step-by-step on what you need to go into and what you need to change. So you click on this and it expands it. And I see I gotta open this script, and then I gotta find this line and make it this line. Pretty self-explanatory. Then instructions, so all core changes must be done first. Then instructions need to be done, and then usage will be coming in the future. And these really, it's what it's going to be is explaining in the video here, like we'll do the installation and we're going to show the usage, where normally you just install it and you're like, okay, I'm installed. You have to figure out how to use it from there. So we'll have a little bit of instructions on how to actually utilize our add-ons. So you go through your instructions top to bottom just like you would the changes, and then you do your use case if you want to know how to use it. And then the video, like this video here, will be posted right in this section. Once it's all done, it'll be embedded, so you can watch it right here, expand it out. Don't even got to go to YouTube if you don't want to. And then extras, this is a little section where we just give some extra information, whether it pertains to the add-on and some things you may have to do, or if there's copyright information that we need to add out. Like this uses some free MIT plugins, so we want to make sure they're disclosed to you. So that's really it. They're very simplistic, they're very straightforward, and honestly, if there's anything that you want or should see that could be added to make this better, or a step is missing, it doesn't, whatever, just jump in our Discord and let me know. We have a suggestions section where you can tell me about these things so I can easily get them fixed and updated, even for the videos. So I'm going to move this off my screen here so we can get started. So now we have those couple errors, so we're going to go and fix those because we're going to do those core changes at once. So those core changes are telling me to open up a few scripts that we're going to make modifications to. So we'll scroll down to find scripts, and here we are. We'll open up scriptable skills and items, and it tells us we need to grab equipment item. So we'll click on that, and now a good hotkey to remember is hold Control, and now we can click on another item. Now we want a usable item, and we want a weapon item, so now they're all selected. We'll scroll down to skills, and we need the bonus skill, the buff skill, and the damage skill. And then we also need the player, so we'll scroll down to find the player and hit Control and click on him. And if you hit enter, it's going to open all of them up in your Visual Studio or whatever IDE or text editor you're using to modify scripts. Alright, so from here, you'll see we have some errors. Fantastic, we expect this, so we're going to fix that by typing the word partial. And then I'm going to highlight that with the space included, and I'm going to hit Control-C to copy it. And I'm going to go to every one of these, and right before class, I'm going to paste it in, like so. And that'll fix all those. Now in Visual Studio, it'll tell you if it's not saved by seeing this little star at the top. Now you can save everything by holding Control, Shift, and then hitting S, and it'll save them all. And we'll go over to player. So now in player, we need to find a little tidbit. It's an entire function, which I found for this function in particular. A good way to find it, it's an on equipment changed. So you can either look for an on equipment changed, or you can hit Control F and you can come in here, and I like to paste in the refresh location index because it goes right to it. So there we go. And now we'll just copy out that blue text that we needed, and we'll enter down twice and paste it in. And there's that change requirement, so we'll save that script. And I'm going to just go up here, I'm going to right click on any of these, and I'm going to hit close all tabs, and that's just going to get rid of those because we're done with them. I'm going to minimize, and voila. Now if it's still compiling, let it finish compiling before moving forward. I'm just going to close all this up, just because I like to keep things a little neat and tidy. Alright, so now all of our errors are gone. Fantastic. So we're done with our core changes, so now we have to step through just the basic installation instructions. So in here it wants us to go to our network manager first, and then in here we're going to go ahead and find our database script. And you remember you need to do this now for whether you're planning to use MySQL or SQLite, because it triggers a change in the back end to make sure that the defines are taking effect. So we're going to switch to MySQL. And now if you're choosing to stay with MySQL, this is where you stop. You're not going to change this back to SQLite. You're going to get a bunch of errors, and I'm going to quickly show you how you're going to change those. So your options are really simple. You'd come into scripts, and you'd go to database, and you can open this up, and you're able to just hit Control A, Control K, Control C, and it'll comment the entire thing out, and you can save it. Or the other option is if you are planning to never go back to SQLite no matter what, then you can just go ahead and delete this database script entirely, and that'll also fix your problem. So that's it for that. So I'm going to go back to the Network Manager, and I'm just going to switch back to SQLite, because for this tutorial we're going to be using SQLite for everything, just because it's easy, it's there, and I know everyone has it. MySQL has a little bit of setup process to it, which not everyone is going to want to go through. So we'll go back to SQLite, let it compile, and well, bam, we're back to where we need to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and lock this in place for now, because we will need this in the near future. So the next instruction is telling us to jump through our folders and start putting things into our scene. So down here you'll realize we labeled every folder with the same as the instructions to make it simple to follow. So in here it wants us to take all these objects in here, these prefabs, and put them onto the canvas. So we're just going to drag them up to the canvas and drop them, and now they're all added. So these are all different kinds of overlays, pop-ups, things that are used throughout our add-ons that will be utilized. So we'll just collapse that again, we'll save their scene, and we'll collapse this folder. Now it wants us to go through and add our scripts to our player. So we're going to go ahead and go to these scripts, expand it out. And actually I'm going to get rid of this for now because we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to go to prefabs, entities, players. And we have 2 players, so I'm just going to highlight both of them, lock them in place, and then we're going to scroll down, and I like to go right underneath the player script and add them in. So you can see they're ready here. So all you have to do is remove them so you can see the process. I'll grab both of these and I'll drag them in, and that's it. So info box, this is pretty simple. If you want the info box information to show up in chat instead of in the info section, then you'll just force it here. Same thing with the pop-up. So that's it. There, we can unlock that. We can collapse these back up. And now it wants us to go through and attach to our network manager. So we're going to grab our network manager, we're going to lock that in place and scroll down right after the network manager script. And grab this config manager and put it right above database. And that gives us 3 things it wants. So that's quick and easy. So that leads us into our next step, where it now wants us to link these in place. So we're going to go to our resources, which I already moved ahead of time. So let me put these back up here. I wasn't paying attention. I had to remove this because I messed up the first video. So this is what this normally looks like. You see a resources moved to resources. So I come in here and I'm just going to go ahead and drop the config in, drop the defines in, drop the game rules. That's all there is to it. And then, so to give you an idea of what these are for, I'm going to uncheck this. And now the config is super simple. So the config is telling you how you're going to build out your game. So this is so game logic doesn't, or server logic doesn't get mixed up. And that's just so for more of a security standpoint. So if you don't want your players having the server code on their side, you would uncheck is server when you build the client out for them, and it would only be a game client missing the server code, and vice versa. So right now during testing, I heavily suggest having both of them because it makes your life so much easier. Just because UMMORPG does not have a nice feature in here for testing with a client and a server at the same time. And then this section here is scriptable objects folder. This is currently not used, but it will be in the future. And this just gets rid of the need for this resources folder. Because how resources works in Unity is it loads this entire set of resources into memory when your game launches. And it has a 4 gig cap, which means if you have a lot of stuff in there, it's just going to cap out and your game's going to have serious crash issues. This will get rid of that because this will give paths to where all the objects are in your game, so they won't be put into memory. When they're actually needed, they'll be grabbed and then put into memory to be used and then gotten rid of when they're done. So for now, it's not there, but it will be in the future. So the define section is pretty simple. This section just shows you all the defines we're using. Right now there's none because we only have tools in. It does use its own define, but it doesn't list itself. But it will list everyone out, all the other add-ons we use. And this is to help load in our add-ons, to help maintain and manage them so we don't have lingering defines for no reason. And then game rules hasn't really been implemented yet. The idea is to allow you to have some sets and game different types that you want in here that you can just easily toggle on and off to adjust your game. So now he wants us to move this resources down, so we'll move into our resources folder. Now keep in mind we don't want to have duplicate folders, we don't want to pile everything together, so we're going to rename this to configuration, or configurations, so it makes sense. Alright, and now all those are in there, and you can see, go back on our network manager, they're still attached. Fantastic. So we can collapse all that, and that is all the things it requires us to do to make this work. Other add-ons can now come in and it's going to function as required without any issue. But how do I know it's here, and how do I utilize some of tools? Well, we have an optional section here where you can see some of the functionality that's actually in tools. So I'm going to drag out this interactable object. I'm going to put it down. Let's kind of get it close to the ground here, as I'm failing to click on the one that goes down. So there you go. It's in the world. Now, it's going to have a bunch of options in on here. As you can see, there's a UCE interactable object. Now, this has a whole lot of interacting options that you can work with. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but there is a significant amount. If I click requirements, it just expands out, and there's quest requirements, inventory requirements, equipment requirements, class, party, guild requirements, skill requirements, time requirements, stats, so on. Like, it's just crazy, right? So this is going to show you one of the most powerful tools that Tools gives you. And so we're going to save our game, and now we can go in and we actually can see Tools in action and actually a functionality from it. So we're going to go ahead and go to server and play. Now I already have a player, so I'm going to delete him because my first test failed out miserably because I forgot to record my audio like a good boy, right? So if you ever want to see stats here, just click up top for stats. It's not 100% accurate, but it is nice to see. You can at least see some of the information, like when it takes. So I'm just going to call this test 1 because my test is taken. We'll hit start. We'll get in our game world, and now I'm going to run up here. You can see everything's running as normal as was before. So we're just going to run up here, and we see our beautiful interactable object. I'm just going to click on it, and it pops up this interaction screen. And I can say I want to interact or I don't. Now if you have a bunch of requirements, they'll all be listed in here. They'll be green if they're met, it'll be red if they're not met. So super simple. If you were forcing this to chat, this would just all show up in here, and instead of option to go and interact or not interact, it would just say you don't meet these requirements. Alright, so you didn't interact with the object. This object does nothing, but like if this was on a lever, if I hit interact, it's now going to use the lever if I was meeting the requirements. Now if you don't want that, like you don't want this pop-up, it's not needed, right? You can go ahead and just check automatic activation, which what that'll do is when I click on it, if I meet the requirements, it'll activate and use the lever. So that's super simple. It's easy to use. There's lots of things you can work with in here. And then if you temporarily for an event or something you want to unlock this permanently, you can just check this, and this will just have no requirements while this is checked. So anyone can just use it. So it's good for timed events or things like that where you don't want to go through and set all these time parameters because these are in-game times. Actually, these are real-world times, sorry. But if you don't want to set this for every person, every object, it's made it easy for you to come in and just check all these and allow it to happen and uncheck them when time comes. You know, whatever you want to get creative with it. This text is just what's going to say in there for the interaction, the icon that's shown, the icon that hovers above to show what's going on. So let's see if we have something in here. And these are just game objects, so they aren't going to work. But there you go. So that is it. That is the entirety of getting Tools integrated and using it. So this will be our starting foundation for all of our other add-ons moving forward as we put them in on this series. So I hope that helped everyone out. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Go ahead and watch the other videos to help you get started with all the rest of the add-ons, and I'll catch you next time.